Welcome to Pick Up and Deliver, the podcast where I pick up my audio recorder as I head out for a walk and deliver an episode to you while I stroll around. I'm Brendan Riley. Well, good afternoon, listeners. It is a very warm suburban day here in Chicago. Very warm, sunny day here in suburban Chicago. I don't know what a suburban day would be, although I guess I'm experiencing it. The sun is beating down. Temperature, my phone tells me it's in the low 90s Fahrenheit here, which is the usual temperature for July in this part of the country. So I was taking a trip and then I had family stuff over the weekend. So sort of getting back into the rhythm of things, which means getting back to the podcast. I've been neglecting us a bit as I look at the number, the podcast number. I should be at 750 by now if I'm going to make my 100 episodes in a year that I usually try for. And I'm at like 736. This is 736 or 737, something like that. So I'm not 730, 200, 3, whatever. I'm in the 30s, not the 50s. So I'm going to have to pick up my pace a little bit, try to make sure I get 3 a week in, maybe even more than that. We'll see. I have to get on a regular schedule again. This being the first podcast of the month, it seems like a good time to review what I've been playing in the episode format that I like to call Top of the Stack. For those of you who are new listeners, a reminder that Top of the Stack is a phrase I stole from the much beloved and long dead now podcast, the Podcast of Nonsensical Gamers. I just like that idea so much, I swiped it for myself. The idea of this episode is to review what I've played in the last month, give you some statistics because I track too much about my game plays, and encourage you to think a little bit about what you're going to play this month, and then we can be on that journey together. If you'd like to share what you played in June, how you did on your Top of the Stack, you can do so over on the Board Game Geek Guild 3269, or if you just Google podcast, if you Google Pick Up and Deliver Podcast Board Game Geek, I'm sure you'll find our guild there, or Podcast Guild, that'll get you. Or you can go to rattleboxgames.com and look for the Pick Up and Deliver Podcast page, which will also lead you there. Okay, so it is June 2021. Here is the stats for my plays in June. I played 55 plays of 37 different games, which is good, but a little shy of my usual pace. I'm up to 411 plays of 145 different games here this year. My shelf of opportunity, I'm afraid, has grown. It went from 47 to 49 games. I'll share a little bit about how that evolved this month. And my collection size grew dramatically by 13 games. It was my birthday this month, so I got a number of games that way. And I also went on a trip and bought some games for myself as souvenirs, so that's part of it. My most played game this month was Beyond the Sun. I played 5 times over on Board Game Arena. I think I'm starting to get the hang of it. I think it would be a very different game to play in person. Just be easier to keep track of everything that's going on. As is true, I often comment about asynchronous games. It takes me a lot longer to grok them playing asynchronously, but I definitely enjoy it. It's a fun way to get to play games I wouldn't get to play otherwise, because I get to play, 1 turn a day or 2 turns a day. All right, in my Top of the Stack efforts, I had, for those of you who knew, I always put 4 games on the top of the stack with the goal of trying to achieve 3 of them in any given month. So my goal is I pick 4 games I want to try to get played. If I get at least 3 of them, I count that as a successful month. This year, I have not had any successful months up till now. January through May, at most I got 1 game played of my Top of the Stack, sometimes 0. So I'm doing quite badly this year, but there we are. In June, the 4 games I had on my list were Sidereal Confluence, Aquasphere, Under Falling Skies, and Twist of Fate. Now of those 4, I did not manage to get Sidereal Confluence played. I'm not sure when I will, but I'm ambitious about that. However, I was able to revisit Aquasphere. I played Under Falling Skies and Twist of Fate. So it's my first successful month. Huzzah! Victory! Triumphant trumpets sound loudly. Aquasphere was interesting. I still see it's still really good. I like it a lot. I don't think I need to ever play it again. I mean, if other people want to say, hey, I want to play that with you, yeah, absolutely. But I have enough sort of really exciting games that this one isn't really doing it for me that much. So I'm going to put this one on the sell pile. I'll let it move on to someone else's collection. It's good, but the revisit, it just didn't hold up for me. Like I said, Sidereal Confluence, that one's going to be a hard one to get to the table. You need at least 4 players. It's supposed to be better with like 6 to 8. But it's also a weird game that, I don't know. I don't know when I'm ever going to play that. It might have been dumb to buy it, but I really wanted it and I thought it looked cool. So Under Falling Skies is a really good solo game. I tried it once, I really enjoyed it. Haven't gotten back to it yet, but I think I will try to get it to the table a number of times yet. Twist of Fate turned out to be an interesting little card game. It was fine, nothing amazing, but worth my time. It was fun to play. I don't know if I want to get rid of it, but I don't know how often it's going to get played. So maybe I should apply that metric and say, yeah, we're probably not going to play that a lot. It can go. Anyway, so along with the 2 games I tried for the first time, Under Falling Skies and Twist of Fate, I did play another 7 games for a total of 6 games for a total of 8 new games in June. The new games were Duelosaur Island, the 2-player version of Dinosaur Island, which I thought was pretty fun. Schotten Totten, a classic Reiner Knizia game, sometimes called Battle Line or also published as Battle Line. Really interesting, classic, simple Knizia game with a great strategy to it. It's sort of like Battle Rummy, I guess would be the best way to describe it. You have a hand of cards, you play one and draw one. When you play them, you're trying to make sets or runs or sets and runs in front of these cards. And if you get a better set of 3 cards in front of one of the 9 stones that you're fighting over, you win that stone. If you win 5 stones, you win. Or if you win 3 in a row, you win. I've since played it again. It is really good. But interestingly, I feel like it's in the same headspace as Lost Cities. Like, I feel like it's the same kind of game. Very similar. My wife and I tried it. She did not like it nearly as much as Lost Cities. She thought it was way harder, which I didn't really understand why it's way harder, but there it is. So I'm not sure how much that'll get played, but I'm definitely keeping it. It's really good in a small game. We tried Micro Macro Crime City. I think I already talked about that on the podcast. We played Adventure Games Volcanic Island. We just tried the first 2 sessions of that, so we have a few more to go there. That'll be fun. And Raccoon Tycoon, we'll talk about that a bit more, but that was one that I got on Father's Day. That's a fun one. And Fast Forward Flee is the game I picked up on my trip to Portland, which I will talk about in another podcast. So those are the 8 new games that I tried this month, which puts me at 51 new to me games played since the beginning of the year. I did manage to get 3 games out of the dust this month. Remember, out of the dust means it's a game you haven't played for a year or more. Aquasphere, I've already mentioned, that was 4 years, 11 months dusty. 4 years, 11 months, 27 days. So it was 3 days shy of 5 years since I'd played that game. Dominion was 4 years and 3 days, so just over 4 years since I had played Dominion. And Magic the Gathering. Last time I played Magic the Gathering was well before I started tracking games. In fact, it was in grad school with my friend Andrew, who had some Magic the Gathering cards, and we played some of that. So by my reckoning, it's been about 19 years since I played Magic the Gathering. Wild. So that's a very dusty game. I ended up playing it. I have a buddy, my neighbor, who used to play Magic a lot and really enjoys it. And he found they have this thing called like Game Night, Magic Game Night. And what it is it's a set of 5 specifically tuned Magic decks that are designed to be kind of relatively balanced. And the idea is that you as players, you could pick one of the 5 decks and pick it up and play it. Or the decks come with these little icons on them, and they're made so you can divide the deck into 2 relatively equal halves and mix and match. So if you wanted to try a black-green deck or a red-white deck or something, you can mix and match the halves to do that. So we played several games of Magic, and that was a really good way to re-experience a game that I'd only played a few times and wasn't really a big part of my gaming life, but it was fun to try again. I certainly won't be going and buying Magic cards myself, but I imagine he and I will play that a few times off and on occasionally from now on. Anyway, so 19 years dusty on Magic the Gathering. So our family 10x10 challenge, we're continuing. We're at up to 24%. And being halfway through the year, I'm allowing everybody to revisit and swap out one game. We haven't been doing great on the challenge, and we've had a number of games that are sort of duds in the goal to get them played 10 times. And so rather than inflicting ourselves with a for sure we are not going to make it goal idea, I've decided that each person gets to swap out one of the games they picked, with the goal that, picking a game that they'd rather play more often. So the games that we're going to switch out, my son is happy with his 2 games, so they're going to stay. My daughter picked the Harry Potter House Cup competition game, which we played once and enjoyed, but she hasn't really been interested in playing it again, so it seems silly to leave that on there. Instead, we're going to swap in the Adventure Games series. I have 2 of them, and there is one more available. Each one gives us like 3 to 5 plays, so we should be able to get 10 plays out of the Adventure Games. Those are much more the kinds of games my daughter likes to play. So we're going to swap that out for Harry Potter House Cup, which actually pushes us from 1 to 2 plays immediately. My wife had picked La Isla, the Stefan Feld filler game, and we played that a couple times, but it hasn't really clicked. Meanwhile, we've been playing Obsession, not obsessively, but quite a bit, and so it seems much more likely that we could get Obsession played 6 more times, because we've already played it 4 times this year, than playing La Isla 8 more times, because we aren't that into it. So La Isla is out, Obsession is in. Then for myself, I have Anachrony, Pandemic Legacy Season 0, Nemo's War, and Cartographers. As much as I would love to play Nemo's War 10 times this year, I haven't even gotten it out once, because frankly, it's a pain to relearn. And I definitely will be playing it again some, but since I can't leave it set up because of the cats, I need to go with an easier game, but I still want one solo game in there. I really enjoyed Under Falling Skies, so I think I'm going to put that in there as my 10 for 10. So I'm swapping out a 1 for a 0 there, but hopefully Under Falling Skies will get played a bit more. So on the Shelf of Opportunity, we managed to get a couple games played. I've talked about those already. We did end up adding a couple games as well, which puts us at 49 games unplayed at the end of June. We started at 47. Here's how the collection has changed. The game from New Mill Industries, Rivet Heads, arrived from Kickstarter. I haven't had a chance to try that one yet, so that's added to the list. I got a copy of Dominion for $2 at Goodwill. Dominion is a game I've always enjoyed. I've never picked it up because it's pretty simple, but it's a fun one. And I think it's a game that has legs, obviously, by the fact that so many people enjoy it. So I'm happy to have a copy. We did get that played right away, so it's not on the list. For Father's Day, I got Adventure Games Volcanic Island, Ink and Gold, Raccoon Tycoon, and Micro Macro Crime City. Those are all games I'm excited to play or have played. Actually, we've played all 4 of those already, so none of those are on the list. Ink and Gold, interestingly, they changed it, so my copy of Ink and Gold is slightly different in a number of ways. And then finally, on our trip, we picked up Adventure Games The Dungeon, Fast Forward Flee, Agatha Christie Death on the Cards, and the Phil Walker Harding Flip and Write Silver and Gold. I also did pick up a copy of Nanga Parbat, but I got that on July 1st, so that will be reflected in the July top of the stack. That's my clever way of getting around that. I did not do very well in the 52 game challenge this month, only playing 2 games that fit the criteria. Those criteria getting harder to play. I'm going to have to be more deliberate coming up if I want to get things played. But the 2 that I got, play your favorite prompt from 2017, a game with a pun in the title. I decided Twist of Fate, which is about fate, but also about Oliver Twist. I decided that was punny enough. Then play a game with a family in it. I chose Everdell because there's the wife and husband pairing. So those are the 2 we've played. I've got 28 out of the 52 games played there. Like I said, that one's just going to get harder, so I really need to be more deliberate. Finally, the top of the stack for July. What games am I planning to play as we move forward? Well, not one to avoid ambition or biting off more than I can chew. I am hoping to get TI4, Twilight Imperium 4 played. That's another game I got in June as part of my birthday extravaganza. And I have a couple days at the end of July when it looks like I should be able to get a game of Twilight Imperium 4 together if I can get a couple people who want to play that. And then the other 3 games that I've picked, my revisit will be Whistle Stop. This is a game I enjoyed a bit when it came out, but I haven't really gotten back to it much, and it hasn't gotten much play around my house. So I'm sort of thinking like, maybe this isn't a game that I need to keep in my collection. Nanga Parbat is a 2-player game that I picked up on our trip from Steve Finn Games, generally very well reviewed, and I'm looking forward to trying that. And finally, I put on here again for the revisit, or the reattempt, Sidereal Confluence. As I said, this is a game that maybe takes more coordination to get played than I have the ability to wield. Nonetheless, I'm gonna try. So those are the 4 games that I have on the top of my stack. I'm keen to hear from you, listener. What have you been playing? What games have tickled your fancy, lit the fire, gotten you going? I do have a few games either that I mentioned here that I haven't really talked about yet, but I'm planning to do a shooting from the hip episode about those, so I won't really add anything right now. I did get a little bit behind on my Board Game Arena and Boîte à Jeux games, so hopefully people aren't too upset with me about that over on my asynchronous channels. So I don't have a lot else to report. Like I said, I'm going to do an episode about my trip to Portland in a bit, but that's about it for me today. So if you would like to share how you were doing, I would love to hear from you. You can head over to Board Game Geek to Guild 3269, or like I said, if you Google Pick Up and Deliver Podcast Guild, that'll get you there. And let us know what you've been playing. How did you do on your top of the stack in June? What are you lining up for playing in July? If you'd like to get in contact with me directly, you can send me a geek mail message. Wombat929 is my username there. Or you can send me an email, Brendan@Rattlebox Games, or reach out to me on any of the asynchronous board gaming sites, Board Game Arena, Boîte à Jeux, or Yucata.de. My username in all 3 is Wombat929. I'd love to play a game with you or just chit chat. All right, well, thanks for joining me today. I hope that your next walk is as pleasant as mine was. Bye-bye.
Brought to you by Rattlebox Games.